Hey guys, Thomas Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the series Miss Marvel. If you end up enjoying this full review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to Petition to help out smaller YouTubers get their own tab. Second and third will head you over to my Patreon and PayPal, and fourth will head you over to my Discord server. Any donations to the first, second, and third will help me and help support the channel. And shilling will be recalled at the end of the review. With all the shilling out of the way for now, let's get back into Miss Marvel. So, despite not liking the other Captain Marvel version of this hero, I decided to give this new heroine a shot in her 6th season debut. To see what all the hubbub was going to be about. And, of course, I'm here to be as objective as possible. So, I figured the best way to do that is to not try to compare her too much to the alternate version of Marvel, Miss Marvel, or, Marvel, Lady Marvel, the previous one. To just talk about this version of her in this way. So, with that out of the way, the show begins. Opening episode, we see, of course, her already unlocking her abilities at a Comic-Con, a comic convention, which is pretty similar to how I saw it done in a video game, so I'm assuming that's pretty close to actually how it was done in the comic book question mark. But though the source of her power seems to be different, I'm actually not too familiar with this version of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, that being. So I can only go based off of what little information I have. Anyway, point being, she gets powers and she does save this other individual, this more popular girl, I think. And once this information starts to slip up and slip out into the environment, it gets into the ways of the government knowing about it and wanting to get her to stop her, question mark. They seemed interested in getting her, but then stopping her then after like a very short while. And this already brings me to Miss Marvel's biggest problem are, well, both of the antagonists. It seems like their goals switched pretty quickly. Again, it seemed like their original essence of when you see them at the end of the episode was like, oh, they're like gonna require her for like her help or something, and then they're like, oh no, we're just gonna shoot at her, I guess, by later episodes. As well as the other antagonist, which deals with this alternate world and these things in this universe called Jinn. Of course, Jinn, I'm familiar with that word outside of this universe, but then again, Disney does, or when it comes to the superhero stuff, it does tend to spread its, the amount of villain stuff and worlds and universes that it's delving into these days. So here we go, diving into another one, as we dive into the Jinn. And the problem with the Jinn is actually more prevalent than it is in the police officers, at least when they were like, I don't know, kind of guiding for her. It wasn't explicitly clear that that's what the case was. However, with the Jinn, it's much more explicit when they first are introduced that they want her help. And literally, the next time we see them, they're like, oh, we're just going to try to destroy you because you didn't help us at the first chance of us being kind to you. Which I don't get it. What was the flip? Why was the reasoning? Why did you feel you couldn't wait any longer. Like, how... There's, like, no reasoning as to why the villains of this show flip in 6 episodes. But they do, because I think that's the reason. It's because many of these shows, in particular this show, is trying to get in way too much information within such a short season. And I say season, but I don't know. Again, I get more and more confused as to why more and more shows feel like they can pull off a season in 6 episodes. It is really, really hard to do that. That meaning, like, by the time you get to 6 episodes, what you could have done within a season's worth of content, that doesn't seem to fit, the more and more shows attempt to do it. It seems like they delve out way too much information, way too much, like, high-stakes content for there to be, like, well, that's a season's worth, 6 episodes. It's like, do these creators know that, like, seasons used to be, like, 20 episodes, 60 episodes, like, way back in the day, or, like, 50, or, like, higher end episodes for, like, 1 season's worth of content? I think a lot of writers and a lot of the people who try to fill out these seasons really forget how jam-packed a season used to be and what they're trying to make it out to be now. And I think that's ultimately a consequence to the writers, is that it forces them to condense so much information down to 6 episodes because they feel like they need to try to fulfill the season's worth of content within 1 season and still leave you wanting more. It's doing 2 things that it can't possibly achieve doing either of them. Hence why it comes across very blatantly with the antagonist of, like, in one episode they're like, oh, he helped us, oh, we're so kind, and then literally the next time we see them, they're like, you didn't help us, we're gonna kill you, or we're gonna force you to do this thing because you didn't help quick enough in the first meeting. It's like, you could have made these Jin characters way more cunning, way more devious, way more kind, and the kindness sort of slowly fades and fades and fades. But again, the word slowly there would have to emphasize that there would need to be more episodes, more time where we are seeing the Jin behaving in accordance to that. We start to see them wearing thin after more and more episodes, hinting that they're getting more and more sick and tired of it, rather than it just being in one episode, it's the flip of the switch. It's a complete 180 from what we understood the previous episode, on top of everything else that this show is trying to do, like, again, introduce a separate universe, introduce time travel, because she heads back in time in one episode, and then, this does more. It is trying to have her both understand both her heritage and as well as deal with her power stuff, which that stuff is like whatever to me. It's like, fine, do whatever you want to have her, you ever want to establish her backstory or your powers, that's all fine and good by me. But it's when it comes to actual characters and actual progression of things happening is where things in this nature start to unravel rather quickly. As well as the characters who know that she's Miss Marvel, that being another example of something that, her starting off with it being a secret identity, and then her friend finds out, and then her other friend, or her parents find out, and then her best friend finds out, or whatever order it's in. But point being is that, like, most of the people she knows, if not all of them, already know by the end of season 1 that she is Miss Marvel. Think about that. Like, what is the point of having a secret identity or, having a superhero identity if most people already know that that's what you are or that's who you are? Like, what maintains it being a secret? And again, you already lose a potential story thread through that. The potential of, well, the villains are going to find out, and now the villains are going to try to attack your friends and family. Actually, that can be a major consequence if they don't already know. And it seemed to already know. As well as dealing with, well, who is the antagonist now? I mean, the Djinn, there seems to be only one outside of Miss Marvel left, because technically I guess she's half of one based off of the information. But this other dude apparently is like the only Djinn left after the little fights at the ending episode there. So who's gonna be the main driving force? It's gonna be him? Question mark. He's gonna be the main villain? Really? I mean, I guess, but again, I don't really know much about him other than I think he was abandoned by his family based off of the lack of information that I have. And other than that, I really don't know much about him other than Miss Marvel or, the main character has a crush on him. And yeah, that's really all I can, slap together with all the information I have. And like I said, I feel like a season's worth of content, what it ought to do is that the feeling of watching a season, to me, is like, when you watch it, you feel like, oh, you completed a story or a story arc. Like an arc of a story. You're about to start a new arc. Or a new journey, which would lead into a season, or a pretty obvious season 2 if there is going to be a season 2 to your show. That would be the way I would handle a season of a given show if I were a writer. However, based off of where this ends, I'm like, well, I'm not really sure what's left. Most people know who she is. She already has a grasp on her powers. I think there's one villain left, question mark? He seems to be on her side for the time being. So I don't really even know if that's the case. The cops kind of give up, so I'm not sure if they're really going to be interested in trying to capture her, based off of the last episode, so there isn't really much left to grasp onto to be like, oh, I'm looking forward to this in season 2. There's nothing here that I'm looking forward to seeing in season 2. All of the things are like, well, that's answered, or that's, done. So I can't, there's no anticipation. There's literally none. So it fails to be a seasonal show, and it fails to have very good characters as well. Not to mention, and I usually don't mention it, but the fighting choreography or the, I don't know if it's the CGI or what's going on, when the character is moving in the more superhero action, oriented parts of the series. It looks very often way off. It looks very clunky and feels like it's so rushed that they did it in one take. We're just ship out, done, 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 done. That's the feeling it looks like. All of the bits where she's doing more acrobatic stuff and running around in her little the little blue things that appear, whatever color they are, underneath her. Whenever she's doing stuff like that, it looks really, really odd. And I usually don't point it out, but it's really, really obvious that there's something weird going on with it. And I don't know, I thought Marvel had, standards when it came to this sort of stuff. When it comes to CGI and making sure stuff looks good, but I don't know. I feel like if this is the level of quality, then why should I care about like the action? I mean, the action itself isn't that impressive. It's okay-ish on the lower end of the scale, so still not very impressive. So yeah, there's a lot left to be desired for an action-oriented show, which, you know, this being a superhero or heroine show, you would think that you would invest a little bit more time into that stuff, since that's like the bread and butter, that's like the thing that people want to see when they want to see an action-oriented show or superhero show. They come to see the action a lot of the time, if not for the characters. Like, that's usually like a follow-up to the characters being great. But the characters aren't, well, the main character, she's okay. Like, she has stuff going on. I'm not going to say, like, they didn't try with her at all. I'm not going to say that. That's completely uncharitable and not responsible of me, because that is not the case. Obviously, they're trying something with her. It doesn't quite land all the way with her. Again, all of her issues of being a superhero seems to be resolved by the end of the season. Like, again, the superhero identity crisis of, like, how do people find out, and, like, that's already resolved, and, who she has a crush on. I guess, again, that there's not really much to say right now on that, because there's not really been much developed other than she has a crush on this character, so can't really say much in that department either. And, you know, having her face a battle that may be challenging to her, that didn't even happen this season, so there's not anything to remark on that either. So she's in a place and standing of, she's quite solid by the end of, you know, in terms of, like, because what I gathered, again, this is what I gathered from the behind the scenes, is that they kept promoting this as, like, she's gonna try to be, like, the next Spider-Man. Like, whew, good luck with that. Like, this isn't, I don't know if this is even as good as the lousier Spider-Man movies. Like, I'm struggling to think, like, because the thing about the bad Spider-Man movies is that it's still attached to a character that's really, really enjoyable to watch. At the end of the day, Peter Parker is still a really interesting character to watch. Despite his lowest of lows, you're still like, oh, but it's Peter Parker, and I'm really invested in what this character brings and what he's going through, and I really connect to that type of character. And to not even be able to achieve that, it seems like her life is going relatively well. She has her family, and her family, again, finds out, and they're supportive of her, and she has her friend, and it seems like her friend is like, oh, I'm gonna leave, but I'm gonna stay for you, so she still has her friends by her side. It doesn't seem like she's going through any personal struggles, like potentially losing a friend. What if one of her friends became a villain for whatever reason? You know, any other number of hardships that she could potentially overcome. She faces absolutely none of them. And so, why would you want to, you know, brand yourself as trying to be the next Spider-Man if you're not even going to try to be the next Spider-Man? This isn't even an attempt to be the next Spider-Man. It's not even close. I don't even know why you tried to say that. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's silly. to think that you were going to try to do that. You weren't going to even try. Of course you weren't going to try. You weren't going to succeed in doing that. Especially within 6 episodes. You weren't going to do it. I don't have enough confidence in the writing. Especially when it comes to Marvel these days. So yeah. Overall, I would say this. If I were to give this show a rank. Like I said, since the main character does do stuff, I would probably give this show like a 3 out of 10. And again, that primarily highlights like what she's bringing to the show. Otherwise, I couldn't see myself giving anything higher than that, and I'm pretty sure I could go lower if I wanted to, objectively speaking. But at the end of the day, it's still not a great series, and I'm not so sure I would want to bother continuing. Anyways, that's my full review of Miss Marvel, and if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description, and when will head you over to my petition. Second and third will head you over to my Patreon and PayPal, and fourth will head you over to my Discord server. Any donations to the second and third are greatly appreciated and help support me and my channel. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!